In this video, let's take a look at the new Squasher effect, which is a multi-band dynamic plugin. What it does is it allows to add some more push and excitement to your tracks by using downward compression, upward expansion, and multi-bands that you can apply these settings to. So I've got a pretty simple EDM track here. It's a bit flat, so I'm going to play it through so you can listen to it, and then we're going to start adding the squasher to some of the tracks and hear what a difference it makes. So let's just take a listen to this track. Sounds okay, but it can definitely be pushed and excited a bit more with some multi-band effect like the squasher. So I've got this drums group over here that all my drums are being routed to. I'm going to solo that, and then on here, let's add the squasher. And that's found under the dynamics subcategory. So let's just talk about the interface a bit first, and then we'll hear what it does. So as you can see, you've got 3 bands. You can limit the amount of bands. Maybe you want 1 band, or you want to use all 3. You can set the crossover frequency for each band. So maybe the lower band you want to be pushing a bit higher, but by default it's set at 100 Hz, and this is set at 3 kHz. Then on each band, you've got the percentage or ratio of the downward compression, which is your standard compression, and then you've also got upward expansion. The threshold for each of these can be set down here. So this is the downward compression threshold and the upward expansion threshold. To reveal more settings, to tweak these settings even further, you can click here to reveal more parameters. So you can tweak the attack, the release, add some drive, and also add some gating into the signal. Here, you can mix the amount of this band that's applied, so sort of like your parallel processing, but on a band level. And then you can change the output level of each band, which you can also tweak up here. So these settings are pretty much the same across the other 3 bands here. So what I'm going to do is first play back the drums and then solo each band and then work through it so you can hear the changes. So let's solo the low band, play it back. And I want this to focus on the kick area. So if I push it too much, you're going to start hearing some of the other elements. So somewhere around 100 is good. Now let's work with the downward compression first. We want to set the threshold. You can see how much gain reduction is going to be happening by this little meter over here. And you can change the percentage of downward compression you want to apply. You don't want to push it too high because it is going to create some sort of artifacts in the sound and push the signal a bit too much. Then you can tweak the attack. So if I push this attack up, you can hear how that's giving a lot more push to that signal. Also, maybe adding some drive. Now, let's bypass the effect, unsolo the band, play it back, then activate it again. You can really hear that push from the effects. And obviously, that's taking into account the other bands as well. So let's move over onto the others. I'm going to solo the band 2, and this I want to focus in on the snare section. Increase the downward compression. That threshold is fine over there. Now watch this upward compression. If I pull the threshold down, you're hearing less of those sort of hats. But as I push it up, it's taking the soft levels and pushing them up as well, which are those hats. So giving a bit more push to the hats. Add some extra drive to that. And then moving over onto the next band. Maybe I don't want as much downward compression, so I'm going to change that threshold and pull that down. But I do want to excite the lower levels. Add some drive. Now listen to the gates as I increase this. I can actually gate, so you're just hearing those hats, which is quite nice to add some separation. So let's just bypass that, unsolo that band, take a listen to the drums before, and now with the effect. Adjusting the levels. So that was quite flat there. And change that output level. So really giving a lot more push and excitement there. So that's just with drums. Let's take a look at some other tracks now. I've got this Sawtooth synth over here, so I'm just going to solo that and take a listen. So let's add an instance of Squasher on there. And we're going to go through the same steps here, just a bit faster. With this band, I want quite a high bit of compression. I'm going to increase the drive and gate it a bit. Increase the attack. Just don't want it clipping too much. Pull that threshold down. Moving over onto the next band. With this, I want to pull down the threshold, drop the upward compression, increase the downward compression, give some more attack, some drive, tweaking as you go. So as you can hear, you can really shape the sound. Then the last band. Maybe change where that is. Now this, I want to push that upward compression. So let's drop the threshold here and increase that upward expansion. Give some extra drive and maybe a bit more attack. So as you can hear, that's quite heavy. I can pull down the mix, so that's before, and mix it in. Now, let's hear it before. And then now with the effects. Also, within the context of a song, I'll jump this back to the beginning there. Let's take a listen with it bypassed. And then enabled. Now let's do one more example. You can hear there's this sort of a bleepy synth over here, bleep 1. I'll solo that and play it back. Now that's great. It's got a bit of a sort of delayed effect on there. And what you can do is if you use some upward expansion, you can bring up those repeats so it's a bit more excited and a bit more forward in the mix. So let's go for Squasher again. Reveal those parameters. Jump back to the beginning of that little section. And we're going to go through the same steps just so you can see it in a bit more detail again. On that low band, I want some more upward expansion. Increase that attack. That's sounding good there. Jump to the middle band. Same with this, I want to push the upward expansion. If you push that too high, it's quite a heavy percussive element in that last band. Changing that gain amount and increasing that upward expansion. So this was it before. I'm just going to enable all the bands again. And now with the effects. So you can hear how that's pushing up those lower sort of repeated effects way more. So as you can see with this plugin, you can really shape your sounds. You can take a sound source that you already have created and use a squasher effect to really change how it sits in the mix by exciting and pushing specific parameters within the frequency bands of each sound. Now going back, I'm going to bypass those effects. and then enable them again. So really a super powerful effect. One last thing that I didn't mention is if you click here, this will also sort of show you the compression shapes of each plugin. So that is the compression view, and then this is the output view. So definitely try this out in your mixes. It really works well to give a push to your sounds, especially if you're working in the EDM genres and you really need things to pump like that. Now I'll catch you in the next video where we'll explore some more plugins.